kind of just as an experience.
Kind
You were
of,
still in
yeah.
high school.
The reason I went was, so Chris drummer lived with my brother for a long time, and Chris was like, Chris and I would drum all the time. I would come over to my brother's and we'd learn some licks. He'd teach me some stuff. And Chris was like, hey, come to RCC auditions. And I'm just like, okay, like I'm not gonna make it. Like I'm 16, like, and he's like, I'll pay for your fee. So then I was like,
oh man, now you got to go because if
now I
somebody,
have to,
yeah.
right? I have to go. So Chris wrote the audition piece that year. So he literally taught it to me, like at my brother's house. Like before auditions, he's like, here's the audition piece. I learned it from the person who wrote it himself. I could play it like top to bottom at tempo, like perfect. So I show up to auditions and I'm like, cool, a little nervous. There was a lot of heavy hitters that year. I was like, I only had like a year of open class experience, and that was like all world-class people there. It was like a big
the whole Blue Devils drum line.
Like a big quad turnout. I was just like...
Were you like the unknown guy there, back then, before anybody really knew you?
Kind of. Most of the staff knew me because of this guy,
yeah,
of course.
They all knew, like, oh, you're Efren's brother.
But like, I hadn't really created a name for myself yet. I was still, I hate to say it, but kind of living under his shadow a little bit, which is cool. I was still, up and coming. And so I show up, and it was like a crazy hard Friday night. I am pretty sure steam was coming out of my ears. Like Nick, RC, and Chris taught us like 50 million things in like the span of 3 hours. And it was crazy. And I was just, trying my best. I was on the spot trying to just keep up and like forcibly make myself better by being there. And funny enough, that Saturday morning, they pulled me aside and said that they were considering giving me a spot. And from that moment, I was like,
I gotta do this.
Oh crap! Like now I'm not just here to learn. Like I like everything I do now has to be the best I can possibly be.
That competitive fire started flowing through you. Yeah.
However, there were a lot of things logistically that just weren't in my favor. Like one, I didn't even have a driver's license yet. I was so young. I was still in high school. And another thing that comes with that, like if you do an independent organization, while you're in high school, you have to get consent from your band director to allow you to do an independent group. They were like, hey, we need consent from your band director by tomorrow. Like if you were to get a spot, we need this. Like we need to make sure you can pay for this.
There was just a lot of hoops.
And that was if they were going to give me a spot. Like I was still fighting for a spot, but I went from being in a learning experience to, okay, now I'm in the running. I think I forgot exactly what Chris told me, but I was ranked up there with some of the heavy hitters, which to me was kind of also very motivating for myself.
Oh yeah, especially at age 16.
And ultimately, at the end of the weekend, they ended up taking other 5 great individuals who, down the road, ended up being some of my best friends that I ended up marching with. I think it was the right decision. They chose.
Pretty much anybody that goes through that program is a great individual,
Oh, absolutely.
So, hold on real quick. I think this is a good segue to that second question that George was nice enough to get us some feedback on. Okay, so question number 2 comes from, hopefully I'm not butchering his name, Akira Torres. Does that sound right?
Oh yeah, Torres?
Yeah. So he's on visual staff at Golden Empire. And he said to ask you both, he says, ask Efren and Daniel about the difference in the way their parents supported each of them.
Yeah.
So you kind of already heard the story with his up and coming.
Oh yeah.
They were, like you said, they just don't really know what this activity is. It's a high commitment. It
costs a lot of money.
Costs a lot of money. And to be quite honest, we don't come from a very wealthy family that has the kind of money to just put out into, the marching activity. Well, like I know Efren, he would like sell chocolates at high school. Like that was his grind.
That's how I paid for the majority of my.
He was the candy dealer in high school. That's how he did drum corps. And like myself included, I would have to find ways to fundraise. But because of him, he kind of broke in my parents for me. So once it came around for me to do drum corps, they were just like, all right, go ahead. Like, go to.
They knew what to expect then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think credit to my parents, like they very foreign to American culture to begin with, but let alone drum corps culture. So they were very hesitant when I first did my first drum corps year. They went to a couple shows and they're like, all right, what are you doing next time? Are you getting a job? I was like, no, I'm doing this again. I have like 5 more years or whatever. And they're like, no, you're not. I was like, what? So they kind of just didn't understand it. But I think as I grew up and I started traveling and getting life experience and kind of kind of like how you mentioned, like you
learn
a lot outside of drumming.
And you make connections too, which is important.
I think my parents kind of started seeing the experiences that I was having and like how much that meant to them, or how much that meant to me, which meant a lot to them. And like my dad, when he was younger, he did like travel soccer down in Mexico. So like he kind of did like the weekend warrior kind of thing. So I think my dad was able to relate it to that. He's like, I get it. Like I've been on a team with a bunch of guys and just running around, like, you know, different field. Yeah. So he's like,
now you talk about connections. Isn't it kind of crazy? Like I see it in these terms. Like if I was somewhere within the United States and I was broken down or needed some type of help,
you have somebody within a couple hours.
Because of some type of drum corps connection, there would be somebody that would come out and give you a hand and help you out. Yeah.
Yeah, all you gotta do is put a post on Drum Corps Coffee Shop. Someone will
yeah. You gotta love the drum corps community.
Yeah. So my parents kind of warmed up into it. I think funny enough, like Daniel was saying, once he got into it, they kind of started realizing the impact it was having. And also I was starting to be a part of like some really good programs. So they're like, oh, there's a lot of people pay attention to this. Like,
it also did help that for most of my few years that I was beginning, he was around for it. So they could kind of just let me be and know that I'm with my brother.
Like they can call me, be like, hey, is Daniel okay? Like, yeah, he's fine.
Although like the only thing that was always the hardest was just the finances. Like they got to the point where they would support what I was doing. It was just like, as long as you have a way to pay for it, like you're good. And there were times where they're like, hey, we can't let you do this. Like you can't pay for it. But somehow you just find a way
to make it work.
You find that drum corps way to make it happen, whether it be like in my day, you work bingo or something, you know, you find a way.
Yeah. No, but so my parents have been super supportive. Yeah. They warmed up into it. It's funny enough, like my mom will show up to shows that none of us are performing at. Like I'll be like teaching and I was like, Mom, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, I know Bakersfield College is on. I was like, oh yeah, but I mean,
like she's very supportive that he's like involved. She's like, oh yeah, Efren wrote the drill. Like just her knowing that our involvement is there, you know.
No, like they started showing up to stuff, and I was like, all right, a little late, but
no, that's cool. You know, to have their support, no matter what age you're at, that's always a good feeling, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And their intentions always came from a good place, but it took some getting around.
Yeah. So Daniel, you marched 2017 Boston, correct? That was your first year at Boston. That
was my first year, which was the very first year where all the staff changes happened.
Yeah, and that was like kind of a breakout year for Boston.
That was
absolutely
a great experience.
Yeah, that show was super cool. Did they let you keep the little roughly thing or no?
No, unfortunately we didn't. I have like the bibbers, the stretchy pant things, but that's about it.
You have the unitard.
But no, going into Boston was a great experience. Obviously, I was going there initially for the staff, but to my surprise, I found a lot more in that organization that I was expecting to find, for the better, and that now, staff aside, it's a place that I can call a home, and I'm very happy with.
He's even branded.
I branded myself. After 1 year is all it took. I was sold. The staff was great. I was taught by obviously Colin McNutt, people he was taught by, and people he marched with, Alex Beltran, Mo, Andrew Ricketts, who was the bass 2 the year he was there, and so many others. Brian Perez. I can go on forever naming them all. They've just added so much to my experience that has, in a positive way, that has made me want to stay there.
Now, it's always seemed like the Boston alumni that you talk to, that at least I would talk to or have interface with, that they're very dedicated.
Oh yeah, I think Boston has one of the most dedicated and long alumni base. I mean, the Corps was founded in 1940. You can find alumni from anywhere. And they keep in touch, which is crazy. It's a whole family that you don't even know exists until you get there. You're just flooded with support. Anytime we do anything near the New England area, there's Boston accents and Dunkin' Donuts and people yelling for you, and It's a great environment for sure.
Have you incorporated the word wicked into your
I
your
do. I
regular?
say wicked. I do say wicked quite a bit. Yeah. Not just because it was like Wicked Games in my show, but I say it quite a bit. I picked up some lingo. But no, it was great. It was a great first year. I learned a lot. It was definitely a culture shock a little bit. Going marching, open class West Coast groups, and like, and I guess I should say Boston prior to Colin arriving was very Texas UNT dominant. So even for the vets, it was also a learning year because it was everyone's first year with Colin, vets and rookies included. Yeah. But the staff approached it really well. It was a great way for them to just unify everything. I know Colin preaches this all the time. He said there's no such thing as vets or rookies. Yep. Everyone's an equal investor. You guys are all just as important. Membership, staff included, we're all in this together. So it was great to really intermix with the guys that were there, the UNT guys. There was some West Coast guys. There were some East Coast guys. And it was a great experience. It was a great time.
So after that year, you do winter.
I stayed at Bakersfield College one more year with me, and really that was my senior year of high school. I was still in high school. And, at the time, I was, I think, doing 3 drum lines. So now I'm doing my high school drum line, Bakersfield College and Boston simultaneously. So yeah, it was a fun time. BC 18 was a great year. I did think about re-auditioning at RCC in 18, which ultimately I did not. I think, again, it was just in my best interest to stay home for my last year.
That would have been a good show to be part of. Yeah.
Yeah, looking back, I don't really say I regret it, but it would have been good to maybe go for it. But either way, I was happy to finish out my year at Bakersfield College, which was year 3.
And the highest placing drum line for that time being.
At that time.
So.
Not including 19. But yeah, so then after 18, finished BC, and I knew I was going back to Boston. I was, committed. Went back for 2018, and that whole summer was even better than the year before. Things just kept getting better.
How is it not? That book just seemed like it was so much fun to play. Just to listen to, I just rewind it over and over and over again.
I'll tell you this much. Obviously, going back as a vet, now you have higher expectations. Of course, you want to make everything better. You want to take what you got the year before, and you just want to elevate it. So of course, we knew Colin. Every year he says, "Oh, I'm going to make the book way harder this year." He says that every year, and we kind of just went with it. During the camp season, we learned a lot of music, and it was like, okay, this is looking to be pretty cool. And the funny thing about 18, as good as it was, I don't think we realized it was as good until after. Like, we were just so in like the motions of, okay, we're just learning the book again. We're learning the show. We're in spring training. We're getting our butts kicked. And that show was not only fun to play, but it was very physical. Like, not only the music too, like the music was very physical and tiring. That drill is probably, I think it's one of the hardest shows I've ever marched.
Now for me, you know what I love the most about that show? And this is me being the drummer. It didn't have like a drum feature, but it had a drum solo. That whole...
Yeah, they had a whole movement.
Yeah, the whole movement was...
Stuff.
Dude, and it's just so awesome, and the beats look so much fun, and the choreography... Dude, to play what you guys are playing, doing the choreography you guys were doing, is just like, how the heck did they pull that off? Yeah.
And that's the thing, I probably why we didn't really realize it, is that it wasn't always good. And that's, I think that's natural for everybody. And it has to suck a little bit in order for it to be phenomenal. And it to be honest, it was really hard. So I think by being so in it all the time, we didn't understand how good it actually was. Like that, it shows. Looking back, I would get anxiety like performing. Like if I'm in ensemble, and we're like 2 hours in, and I'm like, I know the run through is coming here shortly. Like, I have to
start pumping yourself up.
I have to get prepared, because that show took everything out of me, like every single day. And we got through the season, and however we did competitively, that honestly didn't really matter to us. And then looking back, and it was like, whoa, that is probably some of the cleanest music I've ever heard. I didn't even realize it in the moment. Some of the hardest and cleanest stuff I've ever seen.
I think regardless of what you guys placed that year, I know you guys surged at the end, core wise and everything. But regardless, I mean, who cares? That's going to be probably one of the more memorable shows, drumlines in the activity for years to come.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be recognizable. Like seeing it from the outside in, I'm just like, whoa, like this drum line is going to be good.
That quad feature, I got so much jokes about it. To this day, people will hit me with
the timbali solo.
The Tito Puente.
Dude, the one stick on the other stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many cool stuff in there that is just notable.
You got like individual drum solo stuff, but actually played by a whole drum line. Yeah.
It was just fast. It was just running gun the whole show.
Yeah,
There was the only like break we got was the ballad, which is really just take your drums off, go dance, and then put your drums back on. Now you're running and cutting again. That's all you get.
I had the privilege of being there for spring training and teach them for a couple weeks, and then actually catching back up with them on finals week. Mm-hmm. And man, just keeping up with them was tough.
Yep,
they're just running and gunning the whole.
I was lucky enough after not going to finals since '94 when I marched. That was like the first year I went back to as a spectator, and I got to watch.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh
yeah. It was cool. It was definitely cool to see from up top on finals night.
Yeah,
heck yeah,
that was awesome.
So after that year, now you finally decided to go to RCC.
Now I went to RCC again. Yes. So it really was ultimately just like me graduating high school. I think high school was just my time in my life that I wanted to just move on.
You got your license.
I could drive now. I'm making a little money. I'm going to college now. I'm growing up to be more of a like an adult, I guess. Like independent. So yeah, I went to RCC and got a spot there. I marched. I was lucky enough to get to march with some of the guys who were there from previous years, like Miles Kanabi, Will Mitzuk. Really awesome drummers, great guys. I was glad that I was able to catch them on their way out because I learned a lot from them. And as weird as it was actually kind of now a culture shock coming back. Now being at Boston for so long, now being back in the West Coast was a little bit of now I had to readjust.
It must be a different style change stylistically to come back, and you're completely bought into the whole East Coast Boston thing. And now you kind of have to adjust to RCC. And it's funny because I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be able to go watch you guys rehearse. And you see the Blue Devil guys, and then you see you repping Boston with the, BACQ hat and,
Yeah.
Being the oddball, just like me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. You rep who you are.
Yeah. But it was great. It was great first year. I could finally, be a part of the group that I looked up to so long and watch this guy performing. And now it's like, okay, now I'm a Tiger. Now I'm doing it. Like, I don't have to, I'm done auditioning.
Like you got your forever homes.
Yeah. I have my forever homes now. I'm good. I'll just be coming back. But yeah, it was a great first year.
I was going to say, what do you take the most out of that first season when you were in RCC?
Man, I would say, This is a great question. I learned a lot about my piece in an ensemble, like my role, what gear in the machine I was, and I learned a lot, especially from Miles that year. I think I was just also I've always been a very outspoken, excited kid who wants to just put himself into everything, and I learned a lot that year when it was good and not good to do certain things.
Time and place.
Yeah. Which for my maturity, it was great. I not only as a member, as a leader, as just a person. I learned a lot that year in terms of functionality and how to do things. So it was great. I learned a lot. Not only drumming wise, I got to play some hard beats that weren't really in my ballpark that I've never played before. But also got to meet a lot of great people and do that whole thing.
Yeah, you know what was cool about like that rehearsal I went to, just to see the amount of work that gets put in at every rehearsal, and it's like not a minute is wasted. There's always something going on, and like Sean, watching him be the dude there, and he's running and trying to do one thing and stopping and listening and giving his thoughts on stuff, and then back and forth, and it's just like nonstop.
That's the one thing that I've learned to appreciate from RCC, and like everyone has their different processes. How we do things at Boston might be a little different than how we do it at RCC. You know, like with Colin, we do things a certain way. Sometimes it's a little more rep based. It's just like, hey, let's just do it again. We'll talk about it in a little bit. Whereas at RCC, it's less reps, but the quality of that rep has to be really good all the time. So sometimes it's a lot more information, and you'll get twice, and that's it. So it forces you to be like, okay, it has to be top level right now. Like this rep has to be good. There would be times where I think like Miguel, like it was like a water break. Like, hey, we need to change this scrape thing. Like we need to change it. And we like water break, changed it around. Okay, cool. That's gonna be it from now. And then the first rep back, they were like, hey, we're gonna take this big old chunk through the quad feature, and we're like, we haven't repped the change yet. Like in the
Just gotta do it.
and like just do it. So now you're like, okay, you have to just will yourself to play this whole thing, and then when the quad feature comes, play the new part that you literally just put in your brain like 5 minutes ago.
And that's what comes at being at that level of an ensemble. You know, you have to be able to make those changes quick and utilize the time that they give you to max it out. That's what it seems, anyways, from being an outsider. Just
That's spot on. Adaptability is probably the most important thing in a member and a high-end member right now. It just obviously sure talent. Everyone can get talent. Everyone can work their butts off as long as they're willing. But as long as if you're willing to be able to adapt and just mold to what's happening, because no matter if you're a 5-year vet or a rookie, like you got to be able to adapt to what's happening that specific year.
Yeah.
so okay. So you do RCC the winter, and that's the what's the name?
Spice.
The Spice. That's what I was remembering. The Spice. Yeah. I like that show. All the props and everything. Yeah.
It was very experimental for sure. That was also the first year, I should mention, that we really dove into having a movement ensemble. And Sean put a lot of patience into that movement ensemble, and they were the meat and potatoes of the show, design wise, which is really cool to have that incorporated.
So from there you go back to Boston and you do the Goliath show, and
Goliath.
that book seemed off the charts. Also, you know, just watching the Vic Firth learn the music stuff at the beginning prior to the season, and you got a chance to write the quad feature for that, correct?
I did, yeah. I got funny enough, this was like around the time where Hamilton was kind of getting big. Hadn't come out on Disney Plus yet, but I was like I was really into the whole musical thing. And I would listen to the songs all the time, listen to My Shot, and I wasn't really involved yet in terms of like some of the design stuff. But this was my first year being the battery section leader, which was really cool. So Colin would kind of keep me in the loop in some stuff, and he texted me one day. I was listening to My Shot, just like I was running errands or something, and I get a text from Colin, and it said, "Hey, I need you to write me a quad feature to My Shot from the Hamilton thing." And I had to like double take it. I took my earpiece out, and I'm like, you're kidding. Like I paused the music and I read it again, and I was like, I'm listening to this song right now. I have to write something to it. So I wrote, and this was still early in the design process. This was like camp season. So I just found a part of the track from Lin-Manuel's musical, and I wrote 16 bars of just like some hard quad stuff. And I sent it to him, and he was like, "Here you go." He showed the design, and they solidified that whole movement. And I tracked the song at about 180. And then he gets back to me. He's like, "Hey, we're all done. I need 12 bars I need 10 bars at 200. So I'm like, oh, I have to scratch the whole thing. I can't like have it like bumping 20 clicks. So I revised, I went back, and I created it, and I wrote the feature, and it stayed that way all the way to finals, and never got watered.
One of the coolest features last summer.
I was lucky enough to catch that in Indy in the lot, and I think I got some good video of that.
Yeah. I think it was my time to try to kind of like throw in a little new thing into Colin's music. Like obviously Colin has his own way of writing music that's very specific, and you can obviously tell it apart from other lines. So I thought it was a great opportunity, and thanks to him for allowing me to do that. to like throw in a little different perspective in there and try to add a different, perspective.
A little flair.
Yeah, add some hard quad stuff and some quick modulations and skill sets, and try to just get the most out of it.
Yeah. And, 2019 is probably one of my most favorite years for drum corps because every show and everybody was just great to watch. I sat in my seat finals night from who was the 12th place? Was it Crossman? From Crossman?
Fana, maybe Crossman.
Yeah, whatever. From that first corps that performed all the way to the last, I didn't get up to use the restroom or anything because I didn't want to miss anything, And and there's an argument to be made, even down through corps 16 and 17, the talent level, it could have been that 2019 was one of those years where I thought that if they were going to expand finals to let more corps in, that should have been it because everybody was phenomenal from Pacific Crest to Academy to.
I was about to say that Pacific Crest was like knocking on the door.
They were hungry. Yeah, very
awesome.
Hungry. Yeah.
I think Glenn was involved, right?
Yeah, Glenn was and Ezekiel Lancer. So
yeah,
I had some friends in the staff side of things that I was super hyped for them.
Yeah, and what's cool about like PC for me was I got to see them at their preview show and I recorded video. And I recorded their last slot on semifinals. I tried to record a quarter slot, but it started raining, so.
Yeah, I remember that.
So it's like, oh man. So, but I got them on semi, so I got to see their first performance and their last performance. And I always feel like that was for me. That was a cool moment to see. Okay, Pacific Crest, Southern California, repping in DCI. We need a SoCal core in the top 12. So
it's been since Velvet Nights, right?
Yeah, Velvet Nights. Yeah, I want to say. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, because Kingsman, Anaheim Kingsman.
Oh no, Kingsman was there. Yeah, they were like the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a while since we've had some SoCal.
I think 92 VK was probably the last SoCal core to make finals, but
2019 was interesting. It was a great show. And we also had. I guess I should mention that. We did have a hole that we were filling, which is a whole little thing that we had to.
In the quad line.
I'd wanted to ask about that. For a good chunk of the season, you guys had 3 quads, correct?
Yeah, so unfortunately, one of the members had a fracture in his foot, like right towards the end of spring training, and we had to get checked out and everything. And Colin has dealt with this stuff before. I think in 2014, this is what made them have a hole in 14, but they handled it, I think, a little differently. And ultimately
they had 5 quads. That was their solution.
Yeah, I think they kept him in longer, and it ended up just making things worse for him and his career in marching. So I think they played it really smart this year and catching it on early. And unfortunately, meaning sending this member home, but ultimately being better in the long run for his health. So we had 3 spots, and we had to find somebody to fill, and the person who filled it couldn't have done a better job. And it's crazy to look back at because at the time, none of us knew this person personally. I recommended it simply through a conversation I had with him on social media and just seeing his social media presence. I knew he had auditioned at like BD. I think he got auditioned at BD. And it didn't get offered a spot. And I just heard he was just kind of a talented kid. Only spoke to him once, and I think I told him like, hey man, come out to auditions for 2020, like come audition. But that was it. So when Colin was like, hey, I need somebody that we potentially need to fill this spot. For some reason, something in me was like, this guy needs to fill this spot. And so we hit him up and we're like, yo, dude, like, how would you like to fill a spot at Boston? And for him, I guess I should mention he's never marched anything other than college band. He's never done drum corps. He's never done. So it's a lot to ask, of course, to somebody, and especially jumping into a drum line, a Colin McNutt drum line, and a line that he's looked up to a lot.
Fast pace.
Super fast pace. So within the week he was already in the corps. And the quad line we took him in with open arms. And the shitty thing about it is that it happened right as tour started, so it's right where things start ramping up. And unfortunately,
I was going to ask, when did this happen?
Yeah, it happened like early July. So this is now where like we're getting into design stuff. We're getting ready for regionals in the next couple weeks. So it's like we can't halt the entire rehearsal schedule for one person. So we had to just work it out. Like, okay, you're going to learn this much, and we'll try to get you involved this much, and chip away every day. And it was hard at first. I should add. You know, he had some really hard days. That I think there were some days where he didn't feel like he was up to it. He wanted to go home.
I was gonna say that's crazy to learn everything in 5 weeks. You know, 5 weeks is finals, and you know, here you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But little by little, it would be like, all right, now you're doing the opener in the run through, and then a couple of days, now you're doing 2 movements in the run through, and then in a couple of days, yeah, now you're in the drum feature in the run through, and soon enough, it's like, dude, you're fitting on for a uniform. And yeah, it was a little longer of a process than we would have liked, but it didn't matter to us. For us, it wasn't like, oh, we need to get this quad player in as soon as possible. It was like, he'll be in when he's ready. We don't. And surely enough, by the end of the season, he got a few shows in before finals.
That's crazy.
In uniform, his first ever drum corps lot was like Allentown, like performing with us. And he performed his heart out, and he to this day is now one of my best friends. And looking back, when he was the one going through the hardest stuff, he was the most positive. Whenever it was like he had all the right to be the most upset and frustrated, he was the opposite.
In the spirit of the 2019 show, he didn't throw away his shot.
He did not throw away his shot. And yeah, the season ended, and I was super proud of him. Honestly, I've never really been too big on scores. I'm not one that I think that's how we all are. That's Colin's philosophy. It doesn't matter, man. Put a number down, cool. We wake up the next day and we keep grinding. And for me, it was really happy to see Austin Bullock. Just him going through that life-changing experience and being one of my best friends by the end of the season. So that was one of the biggest things I took out from
big shout out to him for doing that.
Huge shout out to Austin.
Yeah,
and he's also making rap music now.
Oh, really?
No, yeah, he's great. He's super awesome. Great drummer. He's
got some great content.
Got some great songs coming out. Check them out.
But yeah, like 2019, it's like all the drum lines, like on the upper echelon of drum lines, and I won't throw out a number, but everybody was like super good. And to try to be the person that has to rank them all, that's crazy. I mean, from cadets all the way down through Vanguard, everybody was just, it was wild. The talent level was wild, dude. I mean, who do you sleep on that year? Blue Knights? No. I mean, you guys know. Blue Coats? No. There's nobody. Everybody was, phenomenal.
I got to roam around the lot on semis and finals, and I was like, man, this is insane.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, it was a drum fan's heaven, being able to be there. And I was there at the break of dawn on quarterfinals, watching everybody all the way till like the last drum line at night. From even the rain didn't stop me because I'd go back and forth from the convention center on the little scooters.
Yeah, shout out
the bird scooters, the lime scooter.
Shout out to you, man. You were there bright and early filming Golden Empire.
Oh, I gotta support Golden Empire, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
I know the members definitely appreciated it too.
Yeah, and so here's a question for both of you.
Yeah.
For quads, mallets or sticks?
Oh, I already know this one.
Who's going first?
I like mallets. I mean, they're both great, but a lot of people don't like mallets, I should say. I think they're great. I love them.
I like the uniqueness of them. They weren't unique back in the day. Now there's only like 1 or 2 groups that use mallets, so I think it's pretty cool, and they feel great. I think from an instructional side, putting on my hat that I wear nowadays, it's kind of like, well, we gotta factor in a few other things, including cost and including other. It's like, all right, there's some really good sticks that also blend really well with the snare sound and all that stuff.
Dude,
so.
but a good quad mallet, man, the sound you could get off hitting that drum, I don't know, it sounds a little different to me. It doesn't sound as thin,
I got a lot of hate for it because at Boston, for some reason, I'm the only person who would ever break them.
Aluminum shaft.
Like the metal shaft, like and I would keep them. I'd be like, oh yeah, I broke one, and I'd put it in my luggage.
Looks like a little.
Yeah, and I'd come home and I'd just have like this bundle of like cookie mallet shafts, and they'd be like, dude, I have no idea how you're even hitting a shot with those. And I would break. Like I remember there was a rep one day where like I hit a slam, a shot, and I looked down and there was like it was missing, and like 2 seconds later, it like I hit my hat. It like literally flew up in the air and hit my hat.
You know what you do with those is you get the broken piece and you drill a hole and you make a necklace, and that's like your ward trophy right there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I like quad mallets.
Sticks are great. I think there's a lot of different variations of everything that feel good. It's all just depends what you're playing and how you're
Whatever gets you around the drums better, I guess, you know. So 2019 ends, and we're going to jump back into winter of 2020. And I remember just hearing who's auditioning for what groups, and it was like an arms race between, at least here in Southern California, between Pulse, RCC, and Broken City, even Dark Sky, and Vessel. They all, everybody had talent. Every group had talent, and it was crazy to watch and hear. Like the RCC bass line, out of control, yeah, like crazy out of control. And then the Pulse bass line was like crazy out of control, you know. And it's like, man, I was just salivating for the shows, and then the shows start happening, and I see, you know, Pulse comes out, they're really aggressive, and it's like, oh man, these guys are great. And then RCC comes out, like really aggressive, and it's like, oh man, these guys are great. Then Broken City comes out, and they're Broken City aggressive, and it's like, wow, that Mike Jackson book, man, this is great, you know. And then the pandemic happens, and we never got to see that head to head, you know.
I think if everything would have worked out the way it should have, like I would imagine seeing every SoCal organization in finals. Like looking at all the talent in world class that year, I was like, dude, Independent World's gonna have 6 SoCal finalists right now, including Pal. You know, we can't forget about Pal. They're good too.
Pal, yeah. I mean, yeah, they were great. But and then too, you have on the open class side, Bakersfield College.
Other BC.
Yeah, BC, yeah. Bakersfield College. Dude, you guys won open class for the WGI in 2019.
A year too late, I should say.
Yeah. And that's nothing easy to do, because all the open class lines are crazy talent, you know?
Yeah, man. So kind of to back up about the Bakersfield College story. So, like I said, Bakersfield College has been around since 2009, working their way through, working through their growing pains. They had some successful runs in Dayton. They made finals a couple times. I hopped on board as just a tenor tech in 2016, which happened to be his first winter as well. I was freshly aged out of RCC. I had nothing better to do on my weekends. I was still obsessed. I still am, but so yeah, I taught BC. It was a great year. I got to teach along some great friends, including Mo and a few others. And I was like, man, well, this is awesome. So I kind of stuck with it. And eventually, the next year, I started writing the drill and doing all the visual choreography and all that stuff. And then doing all the show design stuff. And then actually in 2019 was the first year where I was the head of the program for Bakersfield College. So I got to make a lot of decisions, and it was really, really exciting and extremely daunting and scary. So 2019, we did a show called For Man We Wait, put together by Ezekiel Lancer and Front to Back Music. Shameless plug for them.
Dude, Easy is great, man. I mean,
oh yeah,
dude, what he did with you guys, and then what he did with Pacific Crest, because he also worked with Pacific Crest, dude. I mean, that's outstanding, you know.
Yeah, man. Easy's been awesome. Funny enough, I marched with Easy at Pulse.
At Pulse, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I had that connection with him, and he happened to already be writing for Bakersfield College when I jumped on board on staff. So I was like, oh, cool. Like my old friend who I marched with is writing the beats.
Dude,
so.
and I even have an Easy connection because like his high school drum instructor in Arizona was somebody I'd marched with in VK.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's all a small world, yeah.
Oh yeah,
for sure. So having Ezekiel there, and then we also have Steven Estudillo kind of as some overall picture, kind of helping me with drill design and all that stuff. So yeah, like Bakersfield College, we were doing well. The first year they went to Dayton was in 13, and then they made finals for the first time in 14, and then they took a year off. And then in 16, we made what place did we get?
We got sixth and ninth and sixth.
Yeah, so 16 we got sixth. Next year we got ninth. Next year we're sixth. So we're like really in there. People know us. We're doing well. We drum well. Shows are kind of cool. Like, and then a lot of things just clicked for us in 2019. Show design was great. A lot of membership return rate. I think we had 7 vets out of an 8-man snare line. We had
2 quad vets.
2 quad vets. We had like our whole baseline was vets. Like either when I say vets, I mean they either march Golden Empire or march Bakersfield College.
They've been in the program already.
So it was smooth sailing straight into it, and we had it was like the perfect season. A lot of the show, the way it was taught originally, is the way it stayed. It just worked. There was a few tweaks here and there, as everyone can imagine, and then we got a lot of love, and it worked out for us.
Dude, how fulfilling was that in Dayton on the day when you guys won the open class gold medal?
That's a good question, because I still to this day don't know how to put it, because Bakersfield College being a fairly young indoor drum line, it was like we never really had necessarily expectations like if we win we win, if we lose we lose, whatever, because we didn't really have much of a name for ourselves yet. But through the years prior to me being there as well, like they started building reputation. So like we're always gunning for it, but it was kind of like, hey, we're just gonna try our best to see what happens, kind of thing. and I think towards the like leading up to that year, like 2016, 2017, 2018, those years, like we started winning at San Bernardino.
I think we won West Coast every single year. Yeah. We always left California in first place. It was always just a gamble. What happens in Dayton?
Yeah, because it's a numbers game.
Dude, there's so many groups in open class, and
So yeah, that's a whole other thing. So world class, I think, has 20-ish independent world groups or something. Open class, I believe
50, 60.
Yeah, it's up in the 40s, 50s. So there's a lot of groups, a lot of great groups. And that's why it's a huge toss-up, But yeah, so we went into Dayton with a really good position, sitting in first. And we had I think maybe the staff and the members can correct me on this, but I think prelims was our best show. Like we showed up on prelims day. I remember we had an early slot, and it was like, guys, there's really nothing we can lose. Like, just have a great show, man. We've been doing great all year. Let's do this. And the members nailed it. Skojo was one of the judges. Tom Rarick. There was a handful of like influential people as judges that night, or that morning, I should say, of prelims, and we knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. And like that just set us up for a great trajectory the rest of the week. So like going into Dayton and finals, like we performed last, and it was like daunting. It was like there's no one behind us. Like I remember being in the lot, and this is always a very therapeutic sound that I got to experience as a member, but like being in the lot and no one else being there. Not because no one's watching, but because you're the last ones there.
You're the last people standing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, this is kind of like, are we late? Like, what's happening? Like, it's kind of eerie. So it was great to experience that with Bakersfield College. Like, guys, like you guys are the headliners. Let's do this one more time. I had a great show, finals night. And then, like going into awards, the whole staff was like, is this about to happen? Like, we were kind of all dumbfounded a little bit. We're all sitting there in the bleachers like, okay, everything's happening, all the third place. And it's like,
we're winning.
We won. We did it. It was ecstatic. I think the whole staff was kind of held our breath a little bit because we don't want to jinx it. But I know the members worked their asses off, and it was a lot of great things coming in at the right time. And so the program deserved it. The members deserved it. The staff deserved it. It was super rewarding. And man, that's kind of led to some further trajectory for our program, not only for Bakersfield College, but also Golden Empire, Well, one program success leads into the next.
Do you guys attract any talent from this side of the grapevine?
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
So
good. That's good to hear. Yeah.
So it's funny enough. It's kind of like it's a good problem we're having right now. Is we're kind of outgrowing our mission of providing a great ensemble for our local community. We're starting to get lots of great talent from other places too, which is awesome. I'll never not tell them to come and check it out. But it's like, man, we're growing a little big for our britches now. So we're making sure that we're growing correctly. We're making the right money moves. We're making all that stuff because we know we have a long future ahead of us, and we want to keep that going, not only for Bakersfield College, but Golden Empire.
Dude, that is an awesome problem to have right there, my friend. You want to be able to get that talent coming because then it just sets it up for the future.
Yeah, it went from, I think, rough numbers. It went from like, for example, in the quad line, it was like all Bakersfield kids to like only one person from Bakersfield in the quad line. It's like, oh, all you guys are from Sacramento. You're from LA. You're from, like, what's happening? We used to scavenge the high school seniors to see who's going to come out next year. And now it's like, and I think another thing that I have to give credit to is my relationships with a lot of people in this scene. I have a lot of friends that teach other great drum lines. I march with Henry Gillard. He's at Vessel.
Henry's great. I love Henry. Yeah.
Yeah, I march with people who teach at RC, people who teach at Pulse, people who teach at PAL, everywhere. So I'm like, hey, like let's help each other out. Like I send them some of our talent, they send us some of their talent. Like we're making sure the community as a whole has a quality place to go and have a good experience at. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
2020 looked like it was shaping up to be a great season for you guys too.
Yeah, we were riding for sure on some excitement from the previous season. We had a huge turnout in the following year. So going into 2020, we're like, all right, let's up the ante. Let's kind of move the standard up higher. The show design that we picked was a little more had a little more depth to it. We kind of had to make sure that we're not just doing the open class thing. Like we're also just like we're being great at all levels. Like no matter what level we're in, we wanted to make sure we pick a show that fits and all that good stuff. So like we were really making decisions for the rest of our future. And the talent was great. Like we had a lot of great vets come back from a winning year straight into the following year. And yeah, man, we still had our work cut out for us when everything when it ended. But at the end of the day, like we had some good trajectory. We got some organization behind the scenes that was really functioning at a high level. I think that's the biggest thing that we got to see from one year to the next is just the buy-in from the staff. Not that they weren't bought in before, but like they knew how the system works now. So we were all able to kind of like put in our 2 cents and make sure our gears kind of click and grind together and all that good stuff. And the organization was really functioning what I would consider as a world-class level. And yeah, we're just trying to every year make our home a little nicer kind of thing, So, and we're going to do well. We did well at the Temecula Regional. We didn't have any competitors, but we had great critiques. I had great conversations with some.
If we could have only made it to that first WGI, show.
No, San Bernardino was like 2 weeks away or something.
It was so close. It was so close, and
tasted it.
Yes, and because I was really excited about seeing what was going to happen in everything. Because even my daughter's high school was having a great year. They had a chance for possibly medaling in the SEPA circuit, and for them that would have been huge. Because even the high school levels down here, SEPA.
You're starting to get. They've always been great. It's crazy.
And what's crazy is like I want to say the toughest division is probably the A class.
Oh
yeah.
Yes. There's like 130 of them. Yeah, and they're all like really good, respectfully checking off all the check marks on all the. It's like, dude.
Even sometimes you wonder, it's like, all right, are you in the right division or shouldn't you be bumped up?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. No, man, I was so bummed. Although Bakersfield College was doing really well, we went to one regional. We didn't ever see competition. We were super excited about going into San Bernardino and kind of seeing how we stacked up this year. And then, unfortunately, we never saw anyone because even here at our local circuit, we're the only independent group that gets to compete.
Oh, you guys don't compete against like the Fresno State group?
We tried. So the the guys over there, Joe Avery, who kind of runs that program, I marched with him as well. So we kind of been with their successes growing and our successes, we've kind of been like, yo, dude, I'll do a Fresno show if you do a Bakersfield show. And like, well, we're in those conversations, I think, for future seasons. But then, yeah, we're unfortunately where we're at now. But yeah, I think they were even going to host a show and we were going to go to it. And I was like, dude, let's do this. Like, I'll scratch your back. Like, you scratch mine. Like, we'll get you a rehearsal site. Like, let's make this happen.
Well, hopefully with everything going on and we can lower the numbers and get back to something, you know. It's been, for me as a fan, it's been sad this last year not seeing anything live, you know. And it's cool seeing stuff from other parts of the country, but at the same time I get a little bit of jealous because it's like we don't have that here in California. Not yet, but hopefully soon, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Daniel, what have you been doing post pandemic or during all this? Are you still drumming or what do you got going on?
To be quite honest, I kind of took this time to drum a little less, I should say. I still have my quad pad and my sticks in my room that I'll pick up occasionally.
He still drums a lot, but he used to drum a lot more.
Yeah. I just found this time to put other commitments in my life, just enjoy like time off, just enjoy being at home for once. I think that's been kind of great. Just working, going to school, and I have done projects. Like I did pick up some of those like cipher projects. I was doing little licks here and there, like for little virtual projects here and there. But I think it's great to. I think for everybody in this time is just to take a step back a little bit.
You know what kind of scares me, or not scared? I shouldn't say scared, but worries me as a fan is like the group of kids your age that are still eligible to march and play. You get a little taste away from the activity and it's like, I can be doing this, and you kind of lose that fire to do it all the time.
I wouldn't say I've lost that fire, because as soon as it's back, I'm throwing myself at it. Even now, like we're already in talks with Boston stuff, and I'm already like trying to get it back in it. But yeah, I have seen some people that have just found different purposes in their life, and it's okay. Another thing that I've noticed that I hope isn't this bad is there's going to be like this gap in terms of talent. You have the people that are aging out, and normally you have your people that age out, and then you have your younger crew that fills that hole. But now we have this gap where like there's a year where those young kids didn't get that year to learn and have experience. So now you're just going to have the people who are still eligible pre-COVID. And that's it. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to need to either really jump all the way up to that level, or there's going to be this weird little middle ground. And I think that's what a lot of groups are trying to combat in terms of like all their projects they got going on, and trying to keep everything educational and still building the future for their organizations and for the activity, which I think is really great.
Now let me play conspiracy theorist for a little bit. Is this the time, because in other parts of the country they're allowed to drum and allowed to get together and perform, is this the time where they catch up to Southern California?
Never.
I'll be proud of the region I live in. You know, we've kind of had a dominance over a lot of other areas as far as drumming goes. At least I like to think that. But, now we don't have anything here, and these other parts of the countries are drumming. It's like, okay, is this the time where everybody catches up and now we're all on equal ground? And we see more world lines, like high school world lines, start popping up.
And that gap that Daniel's talking about is a little scary, because even talking further down the totem pole is like how many kids aren't getting their freshman band camp, learning what an 8 to 5 step size is, learning how to point their toes and do all that stuff, So
that's where it begins. That's where there's
going to be an adjustment period for sure. But I guess we got to just accept it and just kind of like do what we do, which is teach.
Yes. Now, somewhat wrapping up our podcast here a little bit. Let me somewhat end this on a few things. Daniel, what is Boston doing right now? Are you guys meeting virtually, or is there plans for a 2021 season sometime?
Boston has been doing their what they call their backstage. So it's kind of just like an audition for this upcoming season. Anybody who wants to march has to go through this process. And we're just kind of just putting all of our material there. It's not really like a rehearsal schedule, I should say. It's more of like a format for us to get material out for the students. Like there's little assignments that they can put up, but it's not like a full on, all right, we meet at like 10 o'clock this Saturday and we'll have a Zoom class, which I think is good. And I spoke to Colin about this too. I think he says it's also healthy for everybody to take a step back and get through this. Like he doesn't think it's smart to just keep drilling band down people's throats in a time like this. You know, everybody has stuff going on. You know, the pandemic has obviously put a lot of people in some interesting situations. So I find it really good that he's been able to understand that and be like, okay, you guys deserve your time off. Like when it's time to crank, it's time to crank. We'll keep in touch. We're gonna. I think as of now we have almost full retention from the 2020 line, maybe with the exception of one or two. I don't know. We haven't really chatted, but so it's like there's no doubt about what we got going on once it ramps up.
That's cool. How many years left until your age out? Is this your age out year, or do you have another year after this?
Yeah. So technically, this is my age out. Although I have been, I'm not too sure on the details of this. I'm not really sure. I've only heard through the grapevine, pun intended, that there are people who have appealed for a bonus. My birthday, unfortunately, is 9 or 10 days before the bonus cutoff. So to March an extra year of drum corps is June 1st, and I'm May 22nd. So I've recently started to maybe look into ways to possibly appeal to age out in 22.
Get a forged birth certificate. That always works. No, I'm just messing. I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
I can scratch off a number real quick and
don't tell DC.
Yeah, don't do that. That's like 1980s, 1990s is the forged birth certificate.
Yeah, especially with this whole pandemic thing going on, and getting one of my seasons canceled and the other one being made non-competitive. I think it's fair. I think it would be, hopefully they take it into consideration to allow for me to have one more season. I think I'd love that, especially because I do get the bonus for indoor. So if I do age out this summer, I'll have like a gap year and then do indoor again. So I'd rather just bridge it all the way to the end.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So Efren, let me end this with this. I'm just kind of curious. Do you have any endorsements? Are you like endorsed by anybody? Who do we give a shout out to? Let's give a shout out to some of your sponsors.
Oh no, I moved on my drumstick.
We're gonna clash here.
So I've been with Innovative Percussion since 2016, and then recently signed with Zildjian about a year ago. So those are my two official ones. Through the college, I have some unofficial relationships with other businesses, but for me personally, Zildjian and Innovative Percussion have been great supporters of me personally, so it's been awesome. Shout out to the other companies, Remo and Mapex. They've been great for the programs that I teach, going light years beyond what we expected for support and all great products and stuff too. So.
And Daniel, do you have anything yet, or?
Technically, I am a Vic Firth educator. There is still some limitations being a marching member, but I was lucky enough to start getting myself involved a little bit with Vic Firth, which is great.
You can develop a mallet line. That way we bring mallets.
Yeah, I'm gonna make the next cookie mallet.
Oh yeah. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you for being part of the Drum Corps Coffee Shop podcast, and hopefully next time we meet up, it'll be in the lot somewhere. And I really look forward to, when all this is over, us giving big hugs and getting back on with enjoying some drumming.
Yeah, man. I would like to say one last thing. I want to say thank you for starting a community of positivity that endorses a lot of great things in our activity. I think there's a lot of toxicity in our activity at times, and you've helped us
steer away from that.
You've helped to build a community that isn't like that. So thank you.
When I had started this, and I've said this before, I wanted some place where everybody from every generation could get together and be positive. Notice we didn't talk about uniforms at all that much. No, but
it's okay.
All kidding aside.
Arbitrary.
Yeah. I'm glad you both are part of the coffee shop. It's been great meeting you guys and following Daniel along during his marching career and being supportive of Efren's groups. You know, go Bakersfield College, go Golden Empire. You know.
Thank you.
Go Tigers.
Yeah, go Tigers for sure. As a RCC alumni, you know, yeah, I'm always rooting for the Tigers. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 alum right now. Cool, man. Shout out to George. We'll miss him. Guess we're gonna have to do another one with George.
Yeah, we got to get George in. Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Well, thank you, and we will catch everybody later on in the lot. Peace.
Adios.
See you, Rob. Thank you.